Welcome back, everybody, to the Beyond Ordinary podcast, where we connect with great people doing great things to inspire you to do the same. Got another extraordinary guest here with me today, man. If you knew what it took to get this man on the podcast, man, oh my goodness. Woo! But we finally here, Howard Homecoming Weekend, you know what I'm saying? I had to represent. I got my boy, Blake Van Putten. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad that we could sit down and chop it up today. And thank you for taking the time out of Howard Homecoming Weekend. I know it's your 10-year this year, so it's like, you know, the fact that you came and spent time with me, I greatly appreciate it, my guy.
Yeah, you got to make it happen. Anything that was worth my time and worth the investment, I think this was too. Like, even the effort you put into making this happen is like, I see it. Let's make it happen.
I appreciate it. And that's what, like, I always wanted, like, my brand to be. I want people to come to my page and say, see, like, oh, he's taking his brand serious. Like, he actually is, like, doing this. This isn't just, like, I just do a podcast with my friends and I just, you know, just talk shit or whatever. Like, nah, I'm trying to actually have the production quality be up there, and I don't want to waste people's time. I did my research and everything, ask intentional questions, and I just get up here and just be like, so Blake, so what do you do? Like, nah, like, we're not gonna do all that.
Excited to be here.
But it's Howard Homecoming Weekend. We definitely gotta throw it all the way back to Howard, man. Like, how did Howard prepare you for your entrepreneurial journey that you have been on so far?
When I got to Howard, I was the person that always had these stickers that said Corrupt Originality on it. When I was in the School of Business, I had a brand called Corrupt Originality. It was a way to be your own person despite what other people say. And I would always give out stickers to people. I was just known as like the person that just had like branding. And Howard was always that opportunity for me to just like tell people what I got going on, but then support people around. So you know people that do photography, videography, graphic design, everything that you can name from Howard. So Howard was really that environment for me where it was like, people knew me as the person that had the brand, but then I was able to collectively work and represent all of those around me with their talent as well. So that was a big thing, especially like being in School of Business. So being in School of Business, it's cool because you're around people and they all want like different types of jobs, like after school and like during it. But that environment of just like that hustle mentality was really, really defining for me that I appreciated being around.
Yeah, definitely. Being in School of B, you just see like the hustle culture, people getting after it. Like, I remember being in School of Business. Every time I told someone I was in School of B, they'd be like, oh, you're going to be good. Like, everybody in School of B always get paid after graduation. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place. I'm in the right circle. Okay. And so you had that, you know, hustle in you. Pretty much, it sounds like you from the get-go. As soon as you got to School of B, you had this sticker business. Like, where do you think your entrepreneurial spirit came from?
I think it came from my dad. Like, my dad had, he just worked in medicine. He had his own like practice, and like he was always just working on creating something that he appreciated and working with people around him that he liked as well. So like, we used to read like Forbes, like 30 under 30 list. We used to do a lot of this stuff together, and then he used to always just instill in me like, if you go corporate, it's like, you'll be fine. If you start your own business, you'll be fine. Like, he always was the person that was telling me, like, put all your eggs in one basket. It's like, it will work out as long as you just know how to, like, pivot. And I think that was something that I appreciated because it's not really more so, like, take the risk and take the leap and be stupid about it. It's like, take the risk, take the leap, but know when, like, certain situations may not be for you, may be for you as well. So he was always that person that was, like, inspiring me. And he went to Howard too, so like just seeing that mentality was like super dope, like coming full circle and everything.
Was he School of B too, or
he wasn't? He was medicine. So
man. Well, he's a doctor. Okay,
yeah.
Okay. And so obviously Howard, we've been there for 4 years, and I swear those 4 years go by so quick.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly cannot believe like I'm like 4 years removed at this point, because I remember like freshman year, doing geo, all like just everything I did each year. I remember like it was just like just yesterday. So what was your favorite Howard memory?
Man, I just remember we used to go up to Georgetown a lot, but I know it's like favorite Howard memory, but we would never be able to get up to Georgetown. We had to catch the G2 bus to get up to Georgetown. So we would all want to go to these Georgetown parties, but because there were so many people, we would never be able to go onto that campus. So I just remember like all of us being like, we're going to go to this party on like Friday. We're going to get on the G2 bus. Cause like at the time Uber didn't exist.
What?
So
really?
we would, so this is, see, it was crazy. We were taking the G2 bus up, and then we would, like, everybody would miss the bus, or if we did make it out there, the last one left at a certain time, so we'd be stuck out there. So I just remember, like, you had to get really crafty of, like, learning DC and everything around it, that it was like, this is really funny that nowadays people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna call it Uber. You can schedule rides nowadays and all this stuff. But
facts.
taxis didn't also used to like pick us up like on campus too. But I just remembered those would be the moments that like, even if it was like a struggle, you get close to people because it's like, all right, we're going to walk all the way here. We're going to walk to Columbia Heights. We're going to do all these different things. You get to know people. You're like, dang, this is a journey. But I remember that. I would also say just like being around and celebrating people for different things has always been like really cool. Seeing people come up with music, the newest music projects, photography, campaigns, homecoming, everybody's talent in itself. Just seeing that come to life is really dope.
Yeah, Howard is just, it's just so crazy just seeing people, even especially people that I went to school with at the same time at Howard, like just the dope things that they were doing. Like I think this one girl, she's like HU18. I think her name's Maya. She just has her own podcast with like Angel Reese.
That's fire.
Yeah, so I saw that. I was like, wow, people are doing dope stuff. To hear that I had on right before you doing LHP. His brand has been blowing up. So just like being around Howard Excellence, and obviously
Tahir. Shout out to Tahir.
Exactly. Yeah. So he was right before you. So
okay.
Yeah, great. That was a great episode. He was mad cool. So like, yeah, and I definitely appreciate always bringing other Howard alum on and just having, especially people that were not at Howard when I was there, and seeing like how their the experience was, and it's just crazy because I think I had someone on that was at Howard in like 2004, and like it's crazy how like we still have similar experiences. They were like, oh yeah, springtime at Howard, we wasn't going to class and because it was warm, and I'm like, bro, I remember doing the
same thing as you.
Same thing. Oh man,
you get to champion other people's wins too. So it's like certain things that Tahir's a great example of that. It's like he's doing his own thing and like he's still in the same industry as me, but it's just like seeing what he's got going on. I get excited. He's got a new campaign. It's like dope. Like you feel as if their wins are part of your wins too. So you just want to see that. So
exactly. I can't wait to see what both of y'all got cooking up over the next few years. But let's go into like what you're doing now with CISE.
Yes.
So walk me through the decision to leave corporate and go all in, man.
So when I was at Howard, I went from Corrupt Originality to CISE as an agency. And as CISE as an agency, I was helping a lot of the fraternities and sororities making their clothes. So I would give their own rendition because there's a lot of history that goes behind it. But I would do like my own spin on it to keep the history on it and make their own designs. When I went up to New York, I worked in corporate for about 3 years, and then I broke my ankle. When I broke my ankle, I flew back to LA to have surgery. And then I was there and I was just really happy to be back because everything was like more chill, more laid back. So I started to really take time to rebuild CISE as an agency. And then the murder of George Floyd happened. And when the murder of George Floyd happened, I was like, I need to do something and I need to pivot the brand to be more intentional for people. So like that decision to move forward was like very easy for me in terms of like feeling more of the community instead of just like the work that I was doing. I was doing like just corporate work. And there was nothing wrong with it, but I felt like my purpose was something different than what I was doing. Instead of it being more of like a project management role, I wanted to do like that exact thing, but my own branding that came with it. So yeah, it just started to transcend to that, and I just doubled down on it. It was something that it didn't make sense with the opportunity that I had at my job because they treated me well, they were promoting me, everything like that. But I just felt in my heart I wanted to change. And I feel like if you're comfortable in your environment, it's time to switch it up. And I felt like that to me was like I needed to change it because I felt like I was going other places looking for the knowledge on my daily life, which was like reading books and like doing all this stuff where when I first started, I was reading books to prepare me for that role instead of excelling in that growth role that I had then. So,
So I'm actually, I met you in New York in corporate. Like I think it was like 2018 or something like that. I was there for some externship or whatever. And so you were there for like 3 years. What made you, because you always had like this entrepreneurial spirit, what made you want to go corporate first and then pivot into the full-time agency?
I feel like people don't really give too much credit to corporations because corporations are the structure and the backbone of the economy when you really think about it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, there's purpose behind it. So when I was at my last job, I wanted to know how a business runs. How are people able to like sustain this? What goes into a business that you never thought about? And there's certain things that I was able to emulate from corporate. So when it comes down to like HR, having a strong team, building, hiring, staffing, these are things that I wouldn't think of if I just started the business the way I wanted to start it. So I think that having that corporate experience was something that was like very helpful for me to understand like the landscape of what it would take if I started my own business to like build this out, that I would be able to start what it is today.
Yeah, I think having a corporate background is beneficial. I know Tahir, when he was on, he literally said, "Nah, I just went full time," which is insane to do, especially at 22. Especially like just thinking about like where I was at 22, and thinking like, "Yo, I'm just gonna do my own thing." I would have fell flat on my face. Mm-hmm. I just know it, just because you're just so young. At least me, I was so young, didn't really have any skills. I would have just been failing forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and then I didn't have the capital either.
It's the environment, the exposure and resources, and I think that like people are not set up, especially like within the Black community, to have all of that, to take those risks and stuff. It's like definitely from a place of privilege to be able to do that. Not speaking about like Tahir, but like from my experience is that I was fortunate enough to build and have my job. In that sense, it's a privilege to be able to save money, to then eventually like invest into starting my own business up and stuff. So that environment was like a reality that I had to build. And like a majority of people are saying, just start the business. But it's like, there's a lot of stuff to think about with the business. It's like, if you start the business and it doesn't do well, you got to dissolve the business. Dissolving a business costs money. People don't even think about those things that you start. And there's a lot of those circumstances that your environment exposes you to. Yeah. I'm a type of person where it's like, I will fail forward. And if I experience it, then I never have to experience it again. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm resourceful. So I will find out like what that is to start the business and stuff. So I think it's cool when it's like he's able to continue to do the brand just like straight out. And like nowadays people are able to build brands like just straight out the gate. But what he's been doing, which is really cool, is like he's been able to land like community engagement and community interaction. And I pay attention to a lot of brands that do that, because like it's one thing to be like a profitable business, but like to be a business that actually like focuses on the community and like works on, he's representing HBCUs and he's representing these schools and stuff aside from his brand and stuff like that. He's leveraged that is his sense of environment. That's a sense of reality. That's really exciting to see like come to life. That some people, in order to experience that, they need to be in another space. Like for me to be in that space, I had to be in corporate America. Other people may need to just live life. It might not be college. It might not be anything like that. So seeing people in their space on how they get started is so exciting to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so crazy that you actually just said that about community, because one of the final questions I asked him, I said, if a freshman came up to you and wanted to do the same thing, launch their clothing brand, like how would you advise them? And he said build a community around the brand. Yeah. That's what he said. So that's dope that you were pretty much hit the nail on the head. So why did you name your brand CISE? What does that mean?
To CISE something is to like hype it up or exaggerate, and it comes from like DC slang and like DMV. But
I didn't even know that.
It's spelled like SICE. You've never heard somebody say like, don't CISE me, or like, oh, I'm gonna CISE you up. That's like, maybe it's, I guess, I don't know. But to hype it up and to CISE something is to celebrate it as well. So like when people are like, don't CISE me up, it's like, don't like, don't gas me, anything like that. So like that's how I feel. And like the business is focused on the community around and uplifting and celebrating. So like celebrating the community that's around. I switched the spelling from SIC to CISE, and I write in all caps. So I wanted to like just honor that and just continue building it. So
okay. That's cool.
And it gives a little payback to like the DC community and stuff that we're around as well. So
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So we just touched on it a little bit in terms of, being in corporate and having that privilege to be able to fund your business. How did you go about when you finally made that transition funding your agency?
I had some money saved up, but there were a lot of changes that I had to make from like my regular pay to like paying off credit cards and like building stuff up. So I took the money I had saved up. I used that to like, because I transitioned, I left my job, started the business, and I moved in at like my family's house. So there's like a complete shift of like the structure of like paying for an apartment and doing everything like that. It was very much so like, here's what I got, here's what I'm gonna put into it. And from the business, it would be like everything I made from the business went back to the business. So I think I started with a couple grand, which is really, really dope. And I would put money straight back into that, but I wasn't spending money on anything. So my overhead, like my daily life, went from spending like a couple thousand from like eating out, rent, food, groceries, transportation, to like nothing. That way I had a higher tolerance for risk. And then I started just like allowing myself to celebrate a little bit more as the business started to prosper a little bit more. So like if you date back to my days of first starting CISE, no haircuts. It's like, I was growing my hair out. It was like, this is the transition, because I felt as if like anything I would do and spend extra money on was punishing myself and my business moving forward, which I don't like advise people to do, because what was happening was that I was just like all in grind mode, because I didn't have a fallback. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any extra income. So if I would go out, like if I were to go out to dinner with friends and stuff like that, if I put that 100 back in the business, and the business could maybe make 2x that, as opposed to an experience that night, I wouldn't have those experiences. So it was a very dark time for me, because I put all that money into just the business, that I do, looking back on it, think I could have structured it a little bit differently, but I don't regret it, right? I think that I'm lucky to be in the opportunity I have now because of what I came from and where I was able to invest that. But I was very much so like, make $1, you got to make it back. Don't spend the dollar till you've already made that back.
Oh, wow. So, like you were really strict, like by the book.
I had the straight backs, and then like after the straight backs, then I needed the lineup with it. So now I was like, now my haircuts cost more. So then I was like,
I know. I saw this, someone put like this meme. It was like that dude from Homer. I don't know his name. He was old, and he was like, talking to all these kids. And one of them said, I was part of the generation that saw haircuts go from $10 to like 50 or 60.
It's crazy.
Oh my God.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But yeah, hey man, like at least you had like that discipline to really like put money away, reinvest. Because a lot of people, when they get in business, they get into it for the money.
Yeah.
So once the money comes, they're like, oh, I got money. I can just finally spend it. And they're not even thinking about, their next move, how they're going to, expand. And then before you know it, once the money dries up, it's like, it's out.
And people don't talk about how the value of making a certain amount of money is not that same amount of money. So if you were to make like $100,000,
right,
you're not paying yourself $100,000 after taxes, overhead, production, everything like that. You may not come out with like a third of that. So when people are like, I want to pay myself $100,000 a year, how much do you have to make to actually pay yourself that amount of money that wouldn't hurt your business, that would still be able to help you scale from that? So people are looking at it like, you're your own boss, you could pay yourself, you could do what you want. And a lot of times people are like, okay, I can make the money, I can invest in myself, and like I could do that, which is true. But at the same time, if you have like California taxes, you got to pay the taxes. Those are already crazy. Then you already have to pay like overhead, payroll, you got to do production costs and all that. When you're thinking of the actual money that costs to sustain and then some, you got to make a lot more money. So
yeah, exactly. People don't understand like the profit margins and the expenses that go with it, and most importantly is reinvesting that money into yourself. Like a lot of the money I make, like money that I make outside the podcast, 'cause I operate this podcast at a deficit. Like there's not bringing no money. And I put in a decent amount of money into the podcast to make sure that I had the production quality and stuff, and it's gonna pay dividends in the future. But I just have to reinvest if I want to get to where I want to be.
And it's understanding what is the most of the least that you invest to make it happen. So like you do have these cameras, like you've got the camera set up and everything like that. But at what point do we go and get like new cameras? At what point do we get new tripods? Do we get new lights and all this stuff? So you're like, I want to put money into it because it's not making money yet. But then how much money do you invest where it's like, there's the cap before it's like, all right, we're investing this, or we even like pay people more and do everything like that. So it's a lot that goes into it. It really, really is. And I wish people were a little bit more transparent in terms of like some of the considerations where people, that's why I really love the propaganda of like, you can do everything on your iPhone. Cause like you can, but you can't. And I think that it's like, it's very beautiful that you can, you can't. There are people that start things up with the little tiny mics. And sometimes it's like the audio's crunchy. So it's like, okay. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've got the nice little boom mics. It's like people can make that work. But I do wish they were saying like there's a certain level of a standard that's like, all right, well, your podcast can't be a certain way this year. The next year is like, we don't have it no more. It's like there's a certain quality that you have to do. If you're doing one video a week, now you want to do 2 videos a week, you don't just regress back to 1. So like that upkeep constantly goes up. And then if you want to make more and everything like that, you got to keep going. So.
Oh man, exactly. I like what you said, that you can, but you can't. Like I tell people all the time, like, look, if if you want to start a podcast, like starting a podcast is really easy. You could just do it on your phone and just record the voice notes and just get on Canva, make you a little art, slap it on. Like you could do that. But at a certain point, you're going to have to like elevate and do things. And I was just like, you know what? I have the capital, I have the money to like invest. Let me just like, let me skip all that and just start here. You know what I mean? And a lot of people in that podcast space been talking about how like video is going to be really important. Yeah. Like you can't just be audio only. So I was like, well, let me just start with video so I don't even have to worry about all that. So are there anything in terms of like your business where you saw that, okay, let me do this to get ahead or anything like that?
I think a big thing that helped us out was owning everything. So we do own like all the media that we create, like any of the photo shoots, video shoots, everything we do.
What do you mean by owning it?
We
like
own all the assets.
Parties?
Yeah, so like any photography we do, like we have all the raw images to all the photos, all the raw videos. We own everything that comes behind it. And it's like working with photographers and videographers is really great because you have the creative vision on it. However, it gets like a little bit challenging if somebody were to compromise the branding that you have right now. So I feel like I have an obligation to my community that things are represented in a certain way. It's like one thing that people don't know on the podcast is like before I got on the podcast, I was like branding has to be like a certain way because this and this and this because there's a certain level of the way that you are presented is the way people carry it versus like how you can navigate freely and operate on it. So owning that data and owning that information has been able to allow us to navigate in opportunities that would have been kind of limiting. We had a New York Fashion Week placement to be on NewYorkFashionWeek.com, like actually when they did the photo shoot, and that was going to be debuted to about 2 million people. Right. And they wouldn't post us if we didn't own the music rights to the songs. Every song we do in our commercials and stuff like that, we get them produced by like my line brother. So he produces all the music, all the assets. We own the music, the photos, the videos, everything. So we're like, yeah, we own it, run it. And that was like the day of opportunity. Whereas like we would have missed the opportunity if we did not own that stuff.
Damn.
Because you would have to get approval.
That's strict. What?
I mean, some people are. Because I mean, imagine it goes viral and like people are making money off of it. Like all these artists are doing stuff on like TikTok and making like renditions of songs and then they can't release it because they don't get the clearance. Yeah. Like they don't get the sample clearance and stuff. But like imagine if you produced it yourself. It's like it might not sound the same as like a hit because that's already a classic that's proven.
Right, exactly.
But if it does take off and you have your own sound, it's like, think of that song by Tommy Richmond, $1 Million Baby, right? Mm-hmm. Like that song went crazy, but like his team did the production on it. So he didn't have to, from my understanding, he didn't have to clear things like if you were to do another song where people like do renditions of these songs and music. So like owning that in terms of like photos and stuff and working with like the models and influencers and stuff, we're able to like, because we have the usage rights to them, to like those assets, we're able to be like, okay, we want to put this on a billboard. And then we get to celebrate with the people we have these like moments with. So we'll be like, hey, we're about to do that. We're not just about to like post like a picture of you like on a big building and like not tell you. We're going to be like, hey, we're thinking of this campaign. This is the asset we want to use. What do you think? And they're like, oh, we love it. They promote it too. And like that community around us and like being on the same page from like a contractual basis really has helped us out a lot. So that's been like big on things.
Absolutely. That's I didn't even really think about that for real. But yeah, ownership is definitely major key. For me, like I'm pretty much I have my own team, that my own in-house team. And so I'm very blessed to that. I don't have to like go through someone else's agency. I train my own editors and stuff like that.
And think about that, because like that's the IP that you own. It's like you are creating that for your podcast. Yep. But you can cut up the videos, you can make them into shorts, you can put them on Instagram Reels, and you can edit it and tweak it in a way where it's like you can make this video and this episode like hundreds of whatever type of content. You can advertise it, you could put it on anything like that. That's what you own. Whereas if you hired a videographer, like another agency, the production could be crazier. Like they've got like a couple $100,000 cameras and like all the like angles, which are really dope. Think of like cooking shows and stuff like that. But at the same time, you may not be able to edit it the same, or you only have that piece of asset for that video. So when people are doing like these commercials might only live in one spot and might not be anywhere else. Where we have content from like 2.5 years ago that we're just running for our like Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaigns this year. Oh, wow. And they look completely different than what we started with because of the way they've been like manipulated, like colors and edits and all that stuff. So they're still brand new assets to people, but people have never seen them But if we worked with a photographer in the past, people would be like, that's the same campaign. So,
Major key. Yeah, that's kind of I've been a little hesitant to join like a podcast network because I'm still new to the game and I don't even know what all that even entails.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard of crazy things where people will join a network and then they get kicked off like their own show and all kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I ain't even trying to do all that.
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to do all that, especially because like a lot of people join networks that really, I already have my team. So it's like, I don't know what more a podcast network would even do for me at this point.
Yeah.
But I actually do have an introduction call with a Howard alum who owns her own podcast network. So I'm about to just talk to her and just be like, yo, like, I met so-and-so at Podcast Movement. I just want to, get more information. And hopefully she put me on some game.
Yeah,
on the podcast network.
That's what it's about. And like being in a space where it's like you can control the environment that's around you. And then sometimes it might be something that's like a conversation to talk about, right? Like a network might provide you everything you have and everything that you want. You might want to do the podcast, like the network that comes behind it. But I think a lot of times people don't necessarily know what they're getting themselves into. But it's environment, right? So the conversation I saw this video of was the conversation about would Hot Ones be the same without, I think it's Sean is his name, the chicken wing guy.
Okay.
Yeah, would that show be the same if he was not the host of the show?
Probably not.
Because I think that they were trying to sell it to like BuzzFeed. Like BuzzFeed owns the rights to it and they were trying to sell it around to like different places, but nobody wanted to buy it because if they sell it might get new management, he might not ever be there. So is the value of that podcast worth it? And sometimes people are able to take that podcast, take the data from the podcast, remove people from it, keep everything the same, and then now like introduce a new host where it's like the opposite way around. So it's the affinity of like tying brands together. And if you look at it from the lens of like, if you own your own rights, it has its pros and cons. It could be like a pro where now I can control like where I sit in here, but it also could be like a con because like somebody could take you to a higher opportunity faster because like everything you own might be worth something, it might not.
Yeah,
So,
it's always that risk reward that you got to play. I don't know. Right now, I'm not trying to take that risk. I'm just going to try and make it further along without it.
Yeah, but you have though, like you're investing in your stuff that you have done. It's just like, what scale is it?
I know, because exactly. It's there's going to be a certain ceiling I'm gonna hit, and then I'm eventually gonna have to actually entertain those conversations. But hopefully by then I'll have a lot more like leverage and have a team and stuff like that, so that way people can't like try and like backdoor me or nothing crazy. So But we talked about New York Fashion Week, man. Yeah. Can you explain to the journey of how you even got to New York Fashion Week? A lot of brands don't even make it that far.
Yeah, New York Fashion Week is really dope. I've done 5 seasons with New York Fashion Week. Love them. I did a video on the different types of New York Fashion Week because people don't necessarily know. They don't necessarily know what New York Fashion Week is. They know what the essence of it is.
Yeah.
And I think that explaining to people the different steps that a brand can be involved are also different as well. So like New York Fashion Week in its core has fashion shows that are going on. And those are just like fashion shows which show different collections and different looks that people have. There's also like the showrooms that come behind it. So in a showroom, it's a presentation of the brand, which is like walking into somebody's home or like a space or a storefront to see it. And then there's also a presentation. And a presentation doesn't necessarily have to be like a walkway show, but it could be like an experience where people come together and it's like they present something. So I've been to a presentation where people walk down and like its own activation and stuff, or they'll show like a video on the screen and stuff. So depending on how you're involved in it, it changes a lot of stuff. Our involvement have been through showrooms and slight presentations. Now, when I say slight presentations, it's because there are other brands that are around that are also doing what we're doing. So it's never independently. It's not exclusive, but like the brand names will be attached to New York Fashion Week's official calendar from a fashion perspective. So we first got introduced to it back in 2021. My PR team was working with them, and we got an invitation to come present the brand of CISE, because CISE got really popular at the time, and we wanted to showcase CISE as a brand and then debut our mobile application. We showcased our mobile application and introduction to a couple pieces outside of like Protect Black People and Protect Black Women. And we showcased like cargo pants, and we showcased other things like that. 2022 comes and we did New York Fashion Week, both seasons. In those seasons, we showcased like our new capsule collections and new presentations, and it showed the expansion and growth of the brand that we had. That was a showroom as well. We continued doing it. Same thing for season 3. Season 4 was last year. Season 4 last year was an introduction to the new collection. That was like a cohesive collection of like CISE has a full myriad of products, but it was product sampling. So we wanted to get into retailers to be in a space to say like, this is us, we're ready for retail, but we want to see what you want before we create the pieces. The most recent one was like solidifying the pieces that we had and like coming full circle, like meeting with buyers and stuff like that to showcase our stuff. That was more like presentation style because that was partnered with Ray's Fashion in a 5-story like mansion in New York where you can like walk around and see all the different like businesses as if they're storefronts. So it was walking into house, kind of like a museum setup. Okay. Super sick. And then cool. You come into the brand of CISE. Since we do like handbags and clothing, you get to see that. But then next to us was another brand which does like fine jewelry. And then the other brand next to us would do like footwear, shoes and heels and stuff. So that's been like my experience in New York Fashion Week has been both the showroom and the presentation style of it. Mm-hmm. But it's been super dope. Like it really, really is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then did you like apply to that? Did they reach out to you, or like how do you go about like getting yourself on these like big platforms?
So my PR team worked with them directly. That was the magic that they did. So okay. I don't necessarily.
Oh, wow. You already.
I don't necessarily know like the background. I'm very thankful that we were able to like hire them and they were able to like successfully do it. There's stuff that comes behind it, right? Like I'm certain that from a cold application perspective, people could definitely probably like get in through that avenue on it. The following years for presentation, we went back to the showrooms that we were invited to, and then the most recent ones we were invited. So with the most recent ones we were invited to, that was a partnership. They worked with a hotel with like the Standard, and then they worked with another one where they were trying to highlight and celebrate BIPOC designers. Mm-hmm. So it's been a mixture of like we've been invited or we've worked with people who have gotten us invited. But there are people that do apply. And like when you apply, you'd either apply for another showroom or like a presentation that's public, or it would be just like, you know, people that comes from it. So it's just a mixture. And I think that the angle and approach that you take, like if you're doing your own presentation, you're not invited to that. You're kind of doing that yourself. You're paying for it. The only thing that you're probably paying for, like the signage rights to be on like New York Fashion Week's fashion calendar, which would be its own thing. And then people still do stuff like ad hoc. So if you have a business, but you're not necessarily on like the Fashion Week calendar, doesn't mean that you're not like reputable. It just means that you're like not on that calendar, and people do like throw pop-ups, people throw events and parties and stuff like that to be on that calendar and stuff. So it's really dope.
Dope. So the fashion industry is notoriously competitive, right? So what were some of the challenges you faced in establishing CISE, and how did you overcome them?
This is an ongoing conversation. I think that there's lack of resources, lack of education, job opportunities, capital and stuff within fashion. Especially for like Black designers, right? Like fashion is predominantly led by white men. And like from that industry, there's not too much opportunity. Like there's a lot of heritage that comes behind brands. So if you're somebody new to fashion and somebody that's not in the family that comes into a fashion house, the likelihood of you knowing somebody is very low. So that's already a problem in itself. I think that the industry holistically, like there's very few opportunities to be in that. And I think that joining and being part of these organizations has been very helpful for me. So like Ray's Fashion was really great because they focus specifically to combat that. There's lack of representation. There's also 15% pledge by Aurora James. So that's focusing on giving like shelf life to Black-owned businesses to take up 15% of their shelf space for Black-owned businesses. So they do a lot of stuff. She's the founder of Brother Velli, which is another like high-end fashion brand. And that fashion brand, she has like a lot of different retailers and stuff that she's in. So their combat and stuff that you're focused on trying to like fight and advocate for. And then Black in Fashion Council, that was the first showroom. They highlight and celebrate working with Spring Studios in the actual facility where New York Fashion Week takes place and like all the showrooms and stuff like that. They advocate for it. So I think that there is a lack of opportunity, resources, and all that stuff, but there are organizations that do combat that, that are focused on that. So it's very challenging, and I think addressing those issues and stuff like that, we own a business that says protect Black people on handbags, clothing, protect Black women on that. That is a statement, a solid statement that helps educate people as like, what are we protecting them from? And we're trying to provide, uplift, and celebrate the community with our clothing and our fashion as a tool to really put people in those positions from like We talk about like owning the data. It's like bringing in a photographer, a videographer, bringing in a graphic designer that's Black, bringing in all these people to have like a myriad of talent. That's what we're focused on. But those challenges have been because of lack thereof of people sitting in those spaces that you want to think of. If you know somebody that is in a store, okay, it's not just about getting in the store. You might be introduced to somebody who wants to get in the store, but can you do a purchase order for a store? Can you get all the clothes in the store? Do you have like a fulfillment center to get the stuff if somebody ships it to you? There's a lot of lack of representation. And because it's a chain, and from the chain is a whole ecosystem of stuff that people don't have the knowledge in, we as designers really struggle in it because like there's a creative side of business and then there's the business side of business. And a lot of creatives really put their heart into designing things that they love and they care about, but they don't think about the business side of it because they're busy putting into the world what they love to do, not really like how to do it. And what happens is like that stuff gets taken and our culture gets taken and put into resources where people have the money for it. So you've got people who've, like I saw this one girl, she has these really, really dope like hair clips. They're 3D printed, modeled and everything like that. But she's making them like in her house. And another business could come in very easily, design that same thing and apply it somewhere else for a fraction of the cost, never give her anything for it.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to work with the people, it'd be like, okay, we can actually refine it. We can replace these people. You almost are kind of like at a disservice to put your creative talents into the world because you don't know if they'll work. Yeah. Pushing out and churning out thousands of them is not realistic for somebody who's doing that as a hobby. But some brands can come in, and that's why I like to work with people who I like find the talent because I can help them execute their vision and put it together in like a collection. But a lot of companies don't do that because you have companies that are backed by data and backed by data for decisions that are not with the intention of the creative lens of it, but from the consumer lens of sides of things. So a business that's like Shein is focused on the data of stuff where they can pump out thousands of a design. And then if people don't like the sleeves on a dress, they'll cut off a sleeve and then just like produce thousands more and like sell it. Whereas like a designer, you need a new pattern. You need to start fresh. You may need to change the sizing. Yeah. You might be your only model for things. You can only fit things a certain way. They're able to change it like that. So the lack of representation and opportunities for us to be able to compete is already fewer than those that are around us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now that it's Howard homecoming season, I saw this one post that said like the running, like the running bison or whatever was designed, or the Buffalo Bills logo, I guess, was stolen from a Howard student who made it in like, I think what, 20 years ago or so. And I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Like I saw the logo
looked, I knew the logo looked familiar. I didn't know the history behind it, but I can definitely see that.
Yeah, which is crazy. And it's like just being in his shoes, it's like I can't imagine designing, you're in school, you design a logo, not only your university starts using it and it's like, all right, cool. And then eventually some NFL team is starting to use it. And now they're making billions off of the logo that you designed and made. And it's so crazy. Like we're just not taught about, intellectual properties, patents, trademarks, all that stuff.
Now imagine if you have a design and then somebody comes and takes it and they don't make billions on it. That's still a reality too. It's like somebody probably could have taken that design and like churned out and it was a failed like business plot and they just did all that, spent all that money on it. It's like, dang, I can't even experience my failure by myself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the reality is like people come up with these really, really dope designs, dope ideas, dope songs, but the ownership of it is very hard and it's very limiting. And I think that we don't get the opportunity to experiment. We don't get the opportunity to do things in peace that we need other organizations to exist to be anchors for us to be that. Like when you really think about it, it's like my business should not need to exist to show and like amplify and celebrate Black people because we should already be celebrated. Yeah, but because we do have platforms like that, it's a starting point for the conversation to hopefully change the dynamic of what it is. But it's crazy. It really is.
It is crazy, man. And so as CISE grows, how are you maintaining the brand's authenticity and commitment to social justice while scaling production?
I think a lot of it is dwindled down to like the origin of it. Like I created the designs in the place of where I was, like the murder of George Floyd. We wanted to give back from the designs we had.
Right.
We've donated over $80,000 monetarily, $60,000 in like product to different organizations. And there have been times when we've donated like money to these organizations that like didn't want the money. We're like, you don't want like the donation? They're like, no, we just want helping hands. And that's when I started to realize like we can shift the dynamic of like how we help these businesses in other ways. And I think that the authenticity have been through relationships and building people around us where I'll take time out and I'll volunteer for things. And everybody who we've ever hired on the team, I ask them like, what do they care about and what do they represent? On a quarterly basis, we were donating to different organizations that everybody on the team would like know about. So there might be an organization I had no idea about, but somebody else would. And we start to learn about different things. We even had a partnership. We have a partnership with for-profit businesses that do teach us about really like the origins and growth and stuff that we have. So continuing those partnerships and celebrations. We just had a partnership with TGIN. So thank God it's natural. That product is super dope because in the community, I'm like, they're killing it and crushing it as far as their community, but their community is very like and similar to us, but it's not the same community. So that partnership and cross community of like hair products to beauty to fashion intertwine, but it's still like their focus this month. The purpose of the giveaway we're doing with them is focus on Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Their founder, unfortunately, had breast cancer, and they're focused on the development of different like educational resources and providing opportunities to bring awareness about breast cancer. And that's something that I'm not necessarily unfamiliar with. I know some things, but bringing into that world and understanding other people's worlds has helped with the authenticity of the brand of CISE. Continuing to like meet people, know people, be in conversations like this conversation, I start to learn different things and then apply it to the business. We've slowed down our production instead of just releasing like product after product after product. I've taken 2 years of like development to stop to be like, how can we intentionally release product so that it's not like just profiting off of anything that's happening with our brand. So like I could easily make another brand. I could easily make another product that says like messaging that we have and it'd be easy to sell, but that's not my intention with it. And people would be like, oh, you should just make this in purple. And like, this is the solution. I'm like, no, it's not. It's like bigger than that. And it's like, oh, well, I'll buy it instantly if you do that. It's like, just because you would buy it does not mean that that's the solution. So saying true to that and also saying no a lot. We have tons of opportunities that come our way that I'm very grateful for. But sometimes like the best opportunities that we've ever dreamed of weren't aligned with our goals morally or ethically. Yeah. So we've been like, it hurts turning down like a big contract because they're not aligned with us, but we had to. And I turned down a really big contract 2 years ago and I told them, you're not aligned with me. Like I cannot work with you. This is what I need to work with you. 2 years later, we finally inked the deal with them. And like it took 2 years.
Oh, wow. Congrats,
bro.
Like,
yeah. So, but it was just like by the time it landed, it was just not even, I don't want to say it wasn't exciting, but it was really more so like, dang, like we had to wait all this time for this to actually go through because you didn't see the importance of it. And saying no has been like important because now you have businesses where our impact with that brand went beyond like the partnership. So that partnership for us is like, it's cool because it was like a cool little partnership. But for them, it's like they restructured everything for it. Yeah. And that's like the part that I think people are afraid to say no to certain opportunities because they might be, and it could be like your next big opportunity, but I wouldn't feel comfortable accepting an opportunity off of my own money or my own benefit as opposed to like putting the brand before me. So really keeping authenticity by pushing this beyond me. So that's why I always say like CISE is above me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you shared that story about you know, declining a big contract that just didn't align. Yeah. Because a lot of people, like we were talking about earlier, they get into the game, they want to make money, and then when you get put, you know, all those figures in your face, and it's like, okay, just sign on the dotted line, especially if you're not in a position to like really say no to money, like you actually need it. You know, but you know, congrats to you for staying 10 toes and being aligned with your values, and it came full circle anyways. You ended up getting the money. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of people think that they just can't say no. And I'm not, and you know, circumstances happen to where you know, you need to say to keep a roof over your head, but you know, just being able to know what you're trying to do and be aligned and just stay true to yourself and everything will fall into place. And it did for you. So
my friend had a 6-figure deal with a company and she had a 6-figure deal with the company, and nobody needed to know that they worked together with the company, but the company was not a good company. And she's like, would you take the deal? It's 6 figures. And I was like, I wouldn't. Damn. But it's like, she's like, I need the money. And
but nobody would know though.
Because nobody would know because it wouldn't be under her name. It would be directly with the company. And I was like, I just couldn't morally take that. Yeah. And a majority of people in a situation like that would have taken it. Yeah, like 100%. And I don't know, but she's just like emotionally, she's like, I have to take this deal. Like I don't have money. Like I have to take this deal. And I was like, damn, that sucks. Like it really is a hard place to be in, and people are put in those positions where it's like a little bit compromising, and people know that. Yeah. Like it's like, okay, well, that's why I really respect other people that go hard on the entrepreneurship, but I respect people that go hard on like also having another job at the same time, because it's not like all my chips are here. It's like I'm using those chips to invest in the business as well. Yeah. So there's just different types of like entrepreneurs. And I think that when it comes down to, you'll learn a lot about somebody when they don't have anything else or they have nothing to lose. So I really do respect like all different types of like entrepreneurs, business owners, people that are thinking about it, because you just never know. Like if you're in that position where you're like, what if this is the last thing I can do?
Absolutely. I like what you said. You never know who people truly are really till their back's against the wall and they're desperate, and you'll see what, how they move. But, that's an interesting story. And, I haven't been put in that position yet, but I know one day it'll come and, probably not make the good decision.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that things don't need to be as dramatic as I make them sound, but you've probably been in an opportunity where you're like, dang, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. It could be like emotionally. It could be in a place where like you really are like, dang, I didn't think about that. It doesn't have to be like yes or no. Like if I say no to this, then I get evicted. It doesn't have to be that dramatic. But people are put in those like compromising positions or like things where you're just like, okay, more than you think. Yeah. So when you do think about that, think about like how you handled situations or stuff in the past that will tell you everything you need to know about like your threshold for risk, how you handle things, and what type of like business owner that you are.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about your line, your Protect Black People line. Yeah. How did that get started? Yeah, let's go into that.
So with Protect Black People, I remember I went to a protest over in Beverly Hills, and at the protest, it was just, I just remember being lost at the protest. Like everybody at the protest was like just...
This was 2020, I'm assuming?
This is 2020. Yeah. Murder of George Floyd happened, and everybody just wanted to protest. We went to protest. We're trying to like advocate, but the way it was done, it was just like lack of... It just felt like senseless help. When you think of it from that space of like, I felt helpless. Like you would go out and protest, but like I didn't feel great at the end of the protest because it's like, damn, like this is still my reality when I go home. Yeah. So I wanted to create a piece that wasn't just the messaging, but it was the intention behind it. So Protect Black People was the first thing I thought of. And with Protect Black People, I wanted to funnel all the proceeds to an organization that knew more about everything than I did. So we worked with the Anti-Racism Fund. Anti-Racism Fund is founded by a Howard alum. And through that, like they have 4 different pillars of helping and protecting the Black community. So it wasn't even about like making a design or anything like that. It was just like I created these clothes on T-shirts. I heat pressed them myself. I was like making them just off of Gildan hoodies. And then I was just like, look, I'm just donating this. This is the first post I have. This is what I'm trying to bring to the world. This is what I'm trying to do. I just didn't feel like it was enough. And then as things started to progress, I started to realize I was building a community around, and all the experiences of people that are around me really shaped the messaging of Protect Black People. As the business started to grow, that's when I started hiring a lot of people, and the people on my team were like, you should make a collection called Protect Black Women. With that, I was like, I don't want to just make messaging that says that without it being like tied to actual causes and like actual organizations that are tangible that we would have sit down for that. So every collection that we've had has been something that has been tied to direct reflections, experiences, and people. And we still continue to champion those communities that are around us to continue to elevate and support the community that's with us as well. So it was out of a place of hopelessness, but it was something that really started to be like larger than me, you know?
Hey, that's dope. Starting something larger than yourself. I think that everybody wants to leave a legacy when they when their time comes, and then that just looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
And you found your lane with CISE and protect Black people. And
Yeah.
I remember when that line came out. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is cool. I'll probably buy something for my mom for like Christmas or something. I keep telling myself I'm gonna do that, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But I'm gonna commit to it this year.
Yeah, there you go. It's on record.
He said it's on record. I know. Now it's on record. I'm gonna have to do it.
On that day to not own you some CISE.
Absolutely. Oh man. So what's been the most rewarding moment for you personally in building CISE, and what keeps you motivated during these tough times or during tough times?
It's meeting people. It's like seeing people's expressions. Is that some people's are like super positive expressions, where like your experience of like the brand of CISE is celebration, and yours is more so like a gift. A gift to your mom is like a beautiful thing. It's like dope because it's like, let me get something for my mom. That's great. There have been other moments where people want those bags because like we work with one attorney. She's a criminal defense attorney. Like we don't work with her, but she's like represented a lot of people within the Black community, and she brings the CISE bag to like all her trials and everything like that. And she wins all these trials, and she's like really like out there protecting Black people, protect Black women. So her experience is different, right? Like hers is not always a celebratory moment, but she's championing the community around. And I think that everybody's experience, because it's so different, gives me like a different viewpoint of the world in general, because you don't see all of those on a day-to-day basis. So I just really get to be in those environments. And I like how it crosses over with everything. Like fashion ties together with beauty more than people think. I think that that's like really, really dope. So we're intertwined with that. It also ties into entertainment a lot. So when you have like artists, like your favorite artists wearing different clothes and stuff for like music videos and stuff, it ties into that. It ties into like music, actors, actresses and stuff. And that community in itself holistically ties everything together. Our first celebrity that we had work with us that posted us without us like asking her was Marseille Martin. And like Marseille Martin just like posted like a picture of like the peace sign with like protect Black people hoodie. And she was like, protect Black people. And she wrote like a message about like what that meant to her and everything like that. And that was our really big break when it came down to like celebrity involvement. And she's so big within the Black community, and especially for like championing people from like a production standpoint, an acting standpoint. She's really, really dope. And that in itself is something I never would have thought of. Like I grew up watching Blackish, Grownish, like all those shows. It's like, okay, but who would have thought that somebody like that you see is closer in your community that's championing the same things that you're championing?
Yeah, that's really dope to see, people that are, promote your business unsolicitedly.
Yeah.
I definitely always appreciate anytime somebody like will repost any of the clips that I make on Instagram or stuff like that. It's like, I appreciate it. And you also just never know who's watching and who you're impacting. I literally was on the phone with my pro fight. He was like asking me about the job and whatnot. And then I think he asked me what I had going on. I was like, I'm doing my podcast. I got an interview, I think, tomorrow. And he was like, yeah, man, like I saw this interview with Chris Hand and da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, shit, like you watch
you
my
really
show?
know.
I'm like, I didn't even know.
You're tuned in.
So, yeah, he's tuned in. So
people are more tuned in than you think. It's crazy.
I know. It really is. And I think it really hit me probably when I went to El Rey once, and these Zetas that they were Neos, like after like I had already left, and I literally never met them before. I didn't even think I followed them on social media. They came up to me talking about, oh, yeah, you're the one with the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wow.
Fire.
Like people actually like know like that I have a podcast.
That's when it's bigger than you.
Yeah, and I know it's bigger than me. That's why I've been trying to bring meaningful conversations and having people be able to take something away from each episode. Even if people don't tune in every episode, which I'm not expecting. So, as a Black-owned business, what advice would you give other aspiring entrepreneurs trying to start in the fashion industry?
Specifically in the fashion industry, just the resources and knowledge that you have can be found through your experiences of like your everyday shopping and like the purpose of what you're doing. So like a Black-owned business, to create a full capsule collection is super expensive. Like people don't understand. You've got minimums. If you're trying to do colorways and all that stuff, it's crazy expensive. But what you could do is you can go to, depending on the store, like let's say you want to be in Kith. Kith accepts other brands. Do they accept other brands? Go into a Kith and like go look through the stuff. See like what their product assortment is. how would your product align inside that? What is the reason that you're trying to be a business? Are you a fashion brand that is Black owned, or are you a brand that's like championing Black people? Because that is also different. I think people could be like successful on both sides, but I do think that those are separate scenarios, because your messaging might not target a different audience. It might target a different audience than the one that I have, right? So people might be just like have really great designs, and they might not be necessarily like for that, but there's like an underlying purpose on why they're working with that. So like there are really dope designers, like people that are working behind the scenes, and like Brother Veli's great company, like with Aurora James, is like she's not promoting the same statement that I'm promoting, but she's championing these Black businesses and like behind the scenes. And that's like big portion of what it is. But like going in the storefront, you want to go to Saks, see where your product fits in there, and then just really shoot your shot. Shoot your shot. There's communities and stuff that are for us, but there is a lack of representation. And I think that lack of representation, even though there are these organizations, is because that problem has not been solved. So realistically, that still exists, and you're just going through the motions of it, and just like make things you love and see what other people say. But, you know.
Absolutely. I like what you said. Shoot your shot. You really never know, like how I was talking to Tahir, and he was talking about how like he gets a lot of his collaborations from DMs, and a lot more people are more accessible than people think.
Yeah.
Like people think that you have to go through heaps and bounds. Now, some people you do. Some people might have assistants and stuff like that, but just shooting your shot, you never know where you're going to land.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I would have never thought that, like when he told me like, oh yeah, a lot of them from Instagram DMs. I'm like, Instagram DMs?
Yeah.
You're doing WNBA deals through Instagram DMs?
Yeah.
Like, that's
I mean,
crazy.
all the people that I've employed have been through DMs.
Yeah.
Like, and that has been just like, hey, do you need a copywriter? And I was like, no, I don't even know what that is. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to write copy for you for social media. I was like, okay. Started writing my copy. This is Charlotte. After she started writing all my social media comments, I was like, you should be the social media manager. You make everything else for it. You might as well just do that. Now she's interested in photography, but it all started from like a DM.
Yeah.
And then like people like Kennedy, she does my customer service, but she bought every product I ever owned. And I DM'd her. I was like, hey, do you have a job? And she's like, I'm currently in one, but it's like, I would love to work for you. I was like, all right, cool. You can do customer service because you're the number one customer. You own every product. You're the number one customer. You know exactly what you want.
She does buy every product?
She owned every product.
Wow.
She owned and bought every single product. Yeah. Wow. And like because of that, who else can explain like a product is like, does it normally come shipped like this? Yeah, it normally comes like this, and that. She knew everything about the product. Yeah. Because she bought everything. And like that's the direct correlation. Instead of me trying to hire somebody to like do customer service and like teach them about customer service, is like she's been there. Yeah. She's asked those questions to our customer service, which would be like to me. She's like, hey, like, how do these fit? How do these do this? She's answering all of them. Thanks. And like that experience has been like curated from DM. It's just like messaging people.
Absolutely. Well, Blake, it was great talking to you today, man. I greatly appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Thank you.
Or having you on the podcast. But what are some last words you want to leave the audience with, man?
This quote I got from a Howard alum as well is, you are who you are to yourself before you are to other people. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, you're going to be what you identify as. So if you identify yourself as like your personality being ecstatic, you being this, you being that, you are who you are to yourself before other people. So other people can like label you as whatever you are, but if you can keep that same intention, same move with purpose, you'll go far.
Move with purpose, man. I like that. And on that note, we are closing out. Once again, man, I greatly appreciate you for coming on the podcast, especially during Howard Homecoming weekend. Yes. Man. There's so many other things. I know you're going to go back to your phone. You're going to see all the notifications.
Oh, man, all the calls.
Absolutely. So thank you once again. Yeah. Where can the people find you at?
You can find me on Instagram at Blake Van Putten, BlakeVanPutten. You can find my business, CISE.store, CISE.store. Check us out.
Absolutely. We're going to put that all in the show notes, man. Thank you once again. Beyond Ordinary Podcast. We're here to inspire you to be great.
Yes, sir.
Until next time. Peace.